Hello, folks. Real pleasure to have Mike Ettling back. He was one of the earliest executives to grace this show as far back as last May when the pandemic had just started. So it's great to have him back. And he's joined by Dmitry Kowalski, who's the Chief Product Officer at Unit4. And we're going to have a great session around some exciting news that Mike is going to share. And then also talk about ERPX that Dmitry had presented on last October. Dmitry, Mike, welcome. Spend a couple of minutes just describing your backgrounds real quick, and then we'll jump into the main theme of the show.
Wow, a couple minutes only. So, Vinny, good to be back. How do I describe my background? I'm a serial tech guy. Still have my copies of McCracken's Fortran and COBOL on the bookshelf behind me. Dangerous, know enough to be dangerous, not enough to program anything in a respectful way. And been in tech most of my career. Like to say I'm from the deep south, South Africa originally.
Dmitry, when he was here in May, he boasted what a good programmer he was. I think he's been respectful to you today, being more modest about his programming skills. Dmitry, give us a little bit on yourself.
Yes, hi, Vinny. Great to see you. Similarly to Mike, I've been in the technology space for a long time now, 25 years. I joined, as I mentioned last time, Unit4 as the Chief Product Officer a couple of months back. I spent 4 years before that at Google and worked at SuccessFactors as the head of products for about 7 years before that, and generally bounced around technology space. If Mike's from the deep south, I'm from the deep north. I guess that makes me, I'm originally from St. Petersburg, not Florida, Russia.
Well, you need to come visit us in St. Petersburg, Florida. My God, this city here used to be, Mike can tell you, used to be a, retirement city. Oh my God, it has become so young and so vibrant in the last 5-6 years. So when the pandemic lockdowns are over, come on over. But Mike, tell us about the exciting news this week.
Yeah, so we signed a definitive agreement last week with TA Associates, supported by the Partners Group, to acquire Unit4. And we're super excited about that outcome. Advent has been a stellar owner of the business for the last 7 years. And now we need to move on to the next chapter, which is to continue the strategy, to continue to grow the business. Great product now with ERPX in terms of our positioning in the ERP world. Massive opportunity in the US market for us, and super delighted to have a software partner with a real growth heritage, of growing companies as our partner for the next journey, the next chapter in the journey. So it's been an intense process to find our new partner over the last 2.5 months. So we super happy and super excited with TA and where we're going to go now.
And you mentioned that before we started that you had your meetings in Florida, only place where you could physically meet these new investors, right? So
yeah, we did our management presentations in North Miami. It was probably one of the more convenient locations where people who wanted to travel for physical meetings could actually travel in without restrictions, and was a very successful 2 weeks of management meetings.
Could you have done it without a physical meeting?
I think what's interesting is that when we got down to the final bidders, most of them I had known historically and had one-on-one meetings over the years with these individual bidders. Deals are being done totally remotely, but when you're investing $2 billion, I think you want to actually press the flesh of the CEO and the team. And I think that's really important. So yeah, things are being done, but I think it makes a big difference to have a face-to-face meeting.
So Mike, maybe you can answer my two questions in the next one. So clearly during the pandemic, we saw vertical edge applications take off, right? Telemedicine, distance learning in higher education, e-commerce and retail, et cetera, et cetera. Every industry had some edge application. You've always been very focused on service industry verticals. Did that come into play when TA looked at you as your growth opportunities? What's going to change with TA? Answer both questions.
Okay. So the first question is, yes, I mean, the services verticals are a very exciting and interesting space to be in. And keep in mind, we focus on the mid-market, not the enterprise. So services mid-market. And it's interesting for two reasons. One, simply the size of the market and the growth. So growth in services businesses is outpacing growth in manufacturing business on a global level. The second reason it's interesting is that the way you need to build ERP and the way ERP is built and has been built and will continue to be built for services-based businesses where the R in ERP is essentially a person, not a widget, is fundamentally different. So yes, absolutely any buyer, any investor looking at our business has to really be comfortable with the market space and the market opportunity. And then to your question, what will change with TA? TA are fundamentally growth investors, and they're investing behind, myself and a world-class management team who have a plan already for what we want to do with this business over the next 5 years. What TA brings to the table for me is really the ability to accelerate. And the fact that they have so many different investments in software, they've seen many patterns before, and they're really able to help us avoid unknown unknowns and accelerate our plans in terms of how we want to grow and how we want to scale. So that's what I'm most excited about. And that was one of the fundamental reasons we chose TA, was their growth mindset in terms of how they approach their portfolio companies.
Exciting. Dimitri, so, the ERPX launch, it's been almost 6 months. I'm hoping to interview some of your early adopter customers, but give me a composite. Give me a read on how the adoption's going, what the excitement's about.
Yeah, so we announced the product in October at our X4U event. And we mentioned at the time that the product will be delivered live to customers in March. So I'm happy to say that we hit all the milestones, and we're just a few days away from actually putting it out and making it available to customers in terms of go live. We also very, very lucky and blessed to have customers who are excited about this and prospects and who want to adopt the product. So we've signed 15 customers already who will go live on the product. We're in various stages of implementation with them. Again, because the product is not technically live just this day yet. There's nobody live on this, but we have a number of customers who are progressing through this implementation pipeline. Now, as far as kind of early observations, it's a little bit across. We have an interest across the board. We have customers in North America, we have customers in Central Europe, we have customers in United Kingdom and in Ireland. We have customers in public sector, we have customers in nonprofit, we have customers in public sector, we have one customer in higher education. So it's quite a broad representation of like our key industries and our key geographies. So we have representation from each one. So the early signals that to us is that the product's generally fit for the breadth that we generally provide. The early interest, again, 15 customers, we're very, very excited with the fact that we've signed already 15 customers that will go live on the product. So that's really great momentum for us.
Great. Well, let's come back and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Mike, when you were with me in May, you were one of the first people I asked about leadership during a crisis, right? And we didn't know back then that it would be multiple crises, right? Start off as a health crisis, became a financial crisis. Then we had a diversity crisis, at least in the US. And now we're facing a climate change crisis in some parts of the world, right? What have you seen in terms of navigating multiple curves, if you will, curveballs really, that have been hitting leaders? Have you been inspired by certain leaders? How has your thinking on that changed, if any?
Yeah, I think, Vinny, I think it's been for anyone, it's been a challenging 12 to 18 months. And I think for me personally, the thing which guides me is one needs to have kind of fundamental beliefs which you stick to through these through these challenges and through these environments. It's very easy to flip from, one issue to the next issue, or one trend to the next trend, and get pulled into different dynamics. I'm a great believer in the concept you've heard me talk about, which is an African concept called Ubuntu. And Ubuntu really says that I am because of who you are. We don't exist in vacuums. We exist in our environment because of who our neighbor is, because of who our partners are, because of who the people we interact with, the companies we sell to. And I fundamentally follow that philosophy in terms of how I approach leadership and how I approach life. And if that's kind of been my guiding principle, through these, for many years, not just the last 18 months. And it's really, I think, it's really been valuable in this process, because it was very easy for us to take the stance, we are a company because of all of our people. So the number one goal during the COVID crisis was not to make people redundant, which we didn't as a result of COVID. And we got through 2020, hitting our original numbers, not making people redundant because of the crisis, because of that fundamental belief and everyone rallying around it. As some of the other crises emerged around the globe, taking the exact same philosophy really has been powerful. And it's universal, because these situations, whether it's diversity, whether it's racial issues, they happen all around the world. It's the same issue. But I want everyone in our company to identify with it. And Ubuntu was a wonderful concept for everyone to really identify with it, whether you're in Stockholm or in New York or in Sydney. It's a very universal concept. So that's been my philosophy over many years, and it's really come to the fore in the last 18 months.
And it helped you through every step of that crisis, right? Because you went through different bell curves, if you will. Dimitri, let's come back to product. So an interesting trend, having come from Google, I'm seeing is every application vendor, every major application vendor is investing heavily in platforms, right? Their own machine learning, their own integration tools, their own, the whole different elements of a platform. And yet it seems like the hyperscalers are starting to dominate that layer, right? Are we going to see some headbutting between the hyperscalers and application vendors over the next few years? What do you, they clearly are not content to just sell infrastructure. They want to own the platform layer, and application vendors want to own the application layer and the platform layer. How do you see it playing out, and how will it affect Unit4?
Yeah, I don't necessarily see it as a conflict, to be honest with you, Vinny, because I think there are very, very different levels and focus of expertise between developing the application, understanding needs of customers, the users, the context in which they use the application, the experiential side of it, the business side of it, the workflow, the functional, side of it, the industries. You need to develop sort of a lot of expertise around that, right? And then on the other side, it's, a lot of that is around, in running infrastructure at scale in different geographies, with very, very high throughput availability, all those kinds of things, and, there's kind of a layer in the middle, which is, sort of the platform layer. And, generally speaking, the expertise we provide to this process is really our customers and understanding their business problems and solving their business problems. Now, in the past, as a vendor like us, you'd have to build sort of the whole stack vertically, and deal with all of this. Having said that, we, at the time also, vendors like VMware or, obviously hardware vendors were part of something we didn't do. We had to rely on somebody else. Now this is all abstracted, and I see it as a huge, huge, huge help to us because, again, we could focus all of our attention, all of our resources, all of our know-how on solving customer problems. And, and we can do this because we live their lives, we live it with them, we breathe the same air they breathe and understand the problems. That's not something that, for the most part, hyperscalers do. And some of them have overlap and some of the similar businesses, but again, it's very similar, separate teams operating in very separate ways. So they are pouring billions, tens of billions of dollars of resources to build the platform. Great. That's not something we probably could afford to do at that scale and level. We're just taking advantage of that. And we're specializing again on the kinds of things only we can do and they can't. So I see it as very, very symbiotic, actually. And I think I see it as sort of enabling us again to put everything we have into solving customer problems.
Dimitri, I'm so glad you said that because there are very few big application vendors who would say that. They are either coveting the platform or afraid of what's going to happen to them on the platform layer. So I like your, you said it without any hesitation. I know where my strengths are. Let those guys invest the billions on the platform. So I like your answer. Mike, let's go back to, during the pandemic, I saw one or two reactions. I saw that in the analyst community. I saw it in the vendor community. I saw some who were like, my God, let's go back to January 2020. I don't like what we're going through. And then I saw others, and you definitely fall in that, and Unit4 definitely fell in that. You actually relished the change. You seem to get energized by the change environment. Do you take any credit for that as a leader, or was the organization just ready to take advantage of the opportunity?
I don't think anyone was prepared for, what's happened in the last 12 to 18 months, 12 months. It's almost, it's almost a year and a week to the, the great let's lock down for 3 weeks to protect the health systems around the world. I don't think anyone was prepared for this to go on for a year. So, I don't think anyone can openly say we were all prepared for this. Quite frankly, leaders were having to make it up as you go. But that is often the hallmark of good leadership, is how do you deal with these type of situations? How do you deal with the unknown unknowns when they materialize? And, I think guiding principles, as I talked about, things like Ubuntu are really important. And I think the other thing which served us well was just focusing very much on our people from day one. I remember saying to my head of HR when this started, I said, Lisa, this is we need to focus on wellness. It's going to all be about our people's wellness. And, the technology and getting on Zoom and Teams and all that, yes, that just kind of happened. We were lucky, very lucky. We had deployed all of this a long time ago, and we had moved to laptops and no desktops in the company. And the real issue became, it's not fun. I'm not in the camp who wants to be like this for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm fundamentally in the camp which says this is an aberration. We need to get back to human contact as soon as, say, humanly possible. So we had to focus on wellness. We immediately said, what is going to be the biggest challenge of our people? Working from home, kids not at school. How do you stay fit and healthy? And we launched all these programs, Kids for You, Fit for You, meditation programs for our people. So I think, you know, I challenge anyone to say they could have been prepared for this. But I think people have felt it very differently.
Not prepared, but I think you took advantage of the changed world, right? That's what I meant more. You didn't shirk from it. You didn't go into the corner and say, "Woe is me." You basically said, "Hey, this is a new reality. We got to react to it."
Exactly. I think you got to roll with the change. And I think as an organization, my team and leaders have done that incredibly well in terms of rolling with the change. And, you know, and I think we talked about this in our last session. We never took our budgets down. We never took our plans down. We said, it's going to be harder to do it, but the number's the number. How do we do it? And that kind of changed the mindset. A lot of people were into replanning very quickly as they got into the process. We just said, replanning's banned, scenario planning's banned, because when you do scenario planning, you talk yourself into the lowest scenario. So I think the team really did some really different things, but it was all driven by this sense of community in the company. We don't want to make people redundant. How do we focus on the wellness? And I think that's got us through the crisis really well.
Well, like I said, I saw analysts similarly, say, "Oh my God, I don't like this." I took advantage of it. You were one of the first ones to come on the show. YouTube sent me a report at the end of the year. I uploaded 3,000 minutes of video. So, I just took advantage of executives being available, going on the record in video and so on, to do a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
Dimitri, let's talk about development. I mean, you obviously launched a major release in the middle of the pandemic. Was it easier to do as people were working remotely, virtually, or tell us some of the challenges you had?
Yeah, it's the kind of things Mike, I think, pointed out. First you need to focus on people and then their well-being. And if you do, and you provide also direction, I always find people are just incredibly, agile and they resilient and they can change and adapt. We see it with ourselves, we see it with our customers. Obviously you have to give them the infrastructure, things like laptops and, access to the cloud, not having to be there. Some of these things you have to deal with. But once those things are taken care of and people feel cared for and have the clear goal and sort of the tools to deliver, they adjust, they adapt, they change the way they work, which is what would happen to us. Generally speaking, we have an advantage of being a global company. It's not sort of a one, everybody in the same building kind of company. We never were. And in some ways this helped us because there's a culture of working with people in different locations and working remotely, cross teams collaborating and so on. So, we're able to sort of switch and adjust and adapt and deliver the product. I don't think we missed a beat. We just really executed exactly how we planned. But we see the similar kinds of things, to be honest with you, with customers and their deployments and how, the projects go live. Again, the kinds of patterns that were in place where our professional services folks would be on site talking to customers, which no longer could happen. Again, customers just like us, turn and switch and adopted. And, a lot of this stuff went remote, through the means like we're talking to you right now. And again, we're all hoping that it's a temporary thing and we'll get back to at least some of the sort of a face-to-face means of communication. But again, this probably changed our lives forever. That will change the way we work forever, because it's not going to go back to exactly how it was. We'll get some of that back, but I think we discovered better ways to work through this.
Again, you have a very positive attitude towards what you went through. So, that's key. Any Mike, talk about the competition. You guys are too positive. Take some shots at the competition.
Well, you're not going to draw me into that one.
Darn.
If we start talking soccer or football, yeah, more than happy to take pot shots at Chelsea and some other teams. But, you know, competition for me is always about respect. You know, it's when you lose respect for your competition, you lose. That's my simple view on life. And, you know, we have lots of
Mike, that's way too boring. Let me ask you that. In this, you're in 4 or 5 service verticals, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing any encroachment by others? Are you still pretty, are they leaving you alone and you can grow your business?
No, no one leaves you alone. We have competition all the time. I think what we have is though and when we do win reviews and loss reviews with our customers, why do they always buy from us? We have this deep vertical focus, and it's not a marketing storybook. Many software ERP companies, you know, industry or vertical is a marketing pitch, you know, which is left up to one of the big 4 consultants to then make real. We have deep vertical in our product, in how we operate, in our DNA, in our domain knowledge, in our configuration engines, which really allow, you know, when customers in not-for-profit call us, they know we know exactly how to do not-for-profit. They know we know how to track integrity of donors' money through to projects and how the money gets used. So that vertical focus really enables us to win. Now, yes, there are specialist boutiques who are in these different verticals as well, but no one has the combination of technology and vertical, which kind of make us, we have this expression, right for your business. No one has that combination of, you know, functionality, product and experience and kind of architecture platform, which is as modern as we are for the verticals. And that's why we are, you know, so quietly confident about what we're going to be able to accomplish and the growth we're going to be able to continue delivering in the market.
Dimitri, any final thoughts? Any vertical thoughts? Any competitive?
To add to this,
take a couple of shots of the competition, please.
we'll love him. We'll love him. We'll love the competition.
But you guys are boring.
we're boring. We're boring, Vinny. I think we're boring. You know, on a more serious note, you know, I was always a believer that it is about customers. It's not about competition. It's so easy to get off course, chasing competition, chasing sexy new novel, blah, blah, blah stuff, right? And companies who go off course typically fall for these kinds of things, you know, in my opinion. You know, I think that our true north is customers and their needs. And that's what really drives our direction. You know, every product decision, roadmap decision, strategic decision, you know, we check against, is it good for customers? Is it right for customers? Is that what they need? You know, to add to my thing, I think another thing that for being a new person in this company, what really jumps at me is obviously it's what Mike said, it's the industry expertise, but it's also a lot of local expertise. You know, a lot of expertise of how those needs, customer needs are slightly different in different countries, slightly different in different countries and in industries. You know, what does a public sector company or municipality behave like, you know, in one of the European countries versus US versus whatever, right? And when you understand that, you could really make the solution right for them, you know, and you could really tweak it and fine tune it so it just fits. And I think that's the origins of the company in the sense, and I think it's very, very important to remember the origins. You know, prior to this, for me, I came from sort of a, you know, US-based company as they expanded, you know, somewhere. This is slightly, you know, this is kind of the opposite direction story. And, you know, such a degree of respect and appreciation for, you know, different countries, locales, different regulatory regimes, and sort of understanding them. I think that's something very different, special to me. And if you look at this, you look at the companies that we serve, many of them are many multinationals in the sense, right? They may not be very large companies, but they may be based in the US, but have affiliates in, some of these countries. They may have sales forces in some of the countries. They may have services in, some of the countries. They may have bought, a division, acquired another company in some of these countries that helps them expand. So it's very important to be able to service them across all the geographies they're in. And I think that's another big strength that we have here, that as a new person really jumps at you when you observe it.
I've been saying for a while, you need to get the grid of geography and verticals right. It sounds like exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mike, you get the final word. Here's your final shot to take at just one of your competitors. No, I'm just kidding. Please have the final word.
Well, Vinny, I always appreciate the discussions with you and the interaction. And to everyone out there and to our customers, always thank you for your trust. Thank you. And there's always choice, so always appreciate the trust. And as leaders out there, I think it's all incumbent on us to really now show leadership, particularly in the corporate sector, and lead the world back into human engagement again, as quickly and as safely as possible. And that's what I'd encourage business leaders out there to do.
Mike, Dimitri, look forward to having you visit St. Petersburg, Florida. So hopefully this year sometime. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny.